obvious truths. So this is the Commonplace Guide for Experts. No, this is the Commonplace Binder, basically a commonplace book. I'm going to set this down after we talk about the front. So it's video number 75 of the playlist. These are the 100 videos of the playlist. And if we find 75, we will see Guide for Experts. So that's what we're going to talk about today. There will be another video that comes out today because I normally have 2 videos coming out every Wednesday. Although around the 50th video, I changed it from both coming out at 2 p.m. to one coming out 15 minutes before, so that way the videos stay in order rather than 50% chance. Obvious truths. What are the obvious truths here? Well, we're working on a commonplace, and it's supposed to be a commonplace book, not a commonplace binder. So that's basically made up, and if that isn't going to work out for you, the rest of this video probably won't either. So a commonplace is basically the thing that people had before the internet to keep track of all their information. So that might have been more of a journal or a diary, but a lot of other people treated it more as lab notes, like actual scientific text, because it was their notes. But depending on who we're talking to, what their definitions are, and how they really want to deal with everything, certain people and their systems, like Leonardo da Vinci, may or may not count. So it all depends how you look at it. But the obvious truths are the things that you want to write down, the things that you know are true, because just like Googling things to make sure that they are still accurate or up to date, it's good to just write down all the essentials to make sure that, we have a backup. Build the toolkit. So this is my demonstration binder. This is not the actual binder that I use for everything. This is the binder that I use to make my videos, and it's more of a prop than a super functional thing that I work on every single day. But you do want to make the thing, because it might be that you want to turn the commonplace binder into a traditional commonplace book. The binder might help you figure out where you want the things to be located. That's one of the obvious benefits of the binder. You can put things in, take it out, move it around. But you might find that the thing that you actually want is things to be written in a specific location, memorize that order, and be able to draw upon it at any time. So it might be you convert the commonplace binder into a commonplace book. Could also be you want something a little bit more related to loose leaf pages, or something a little bit more free flowing. So you might go into a Zettelkasten. The problem with the Zettelkasten is it can kind of consume everything because it's basically paper note cards that go into boxes or trays, and they end up taking up a cabinet and then an entire wall and then your entire house. And so at that point, it's probably a lot better to just use a personal knowledge base, which is what commonplaces turned into, and then after that they turn into computers. So a personal knowledge base is more of a digital system. So I guess you could say a computer was required before a personal knowledge base existed, but it's basically just storing all your notes digitally. So that might be, Google Drive, or Microsoft Word, or just a bunch of little text docs on a thumb drive, but probably Notion, Obsidian, Evernote, or one of the other things that are not sponsored. By the way, nothing sponsored in this video as of yet, but there might be some things down in the description if I go back and edit everything in the future. The point is, you might like the paper, you might not like the paper, you might want to do things digitally, but whatever you do, a commonplace binder might be a good way to start. Obviously, if you're like 40 plus years old, you've probably figured out what already works and what doesn't work, so this isn't really necessary, but this is for the people who are trying to be an expert, or for some reason, as somebody who's like 20 years old thinks that they already are, which they might be. Risk aversion. So I don't like taking the risk of assuming I am the legendary expert of something as a 20-year-old. Now, I'm no longer 20, so maybe that means I'm fine. But until I'm at least 30, I probably don't want to be saying, I'm the number one. But why risk aversion? Why in this video? Well, a lot of experts aren't necessarily considered experts because they are the only people who can come up with the great things. They're more so the people who can always come up with the great things, or at least they have a much higher baseline than most people. And so if you can build this toolkit, which allows you to avoid a bunch of unnecessary risks, it might be that you can write out all the potential risks you want to take and then act on those later when you know it's not going to potentially terminate an experience of some kind. Maintain for years. Experts probably didn't get there in one day. They probably got there over a long period of time. And so maintaining this is going to take years. If someone's trying to become an expert, but if they already are an expert, they're probably just going to hold on to it, because why would someone throw away the things that help them function? Kind of seems silly. Feeling an impulse. Maybe you're feeling the impulse to write right now, in which case, just pause the video, write down that note, and come back in like 5 minutes. So I believe most browsers have the ability to set a timer, so you can just search like 5-minute timer and then press the button and it will go and it'll make noise. You might want to check first with a 10-second timer just to make sure that there will actually be noise. Because sometimes people will accidentally close the tab or not check to see what the noise is before they actually set the long timer, which I think is very silly, because it's good to know what the timer is going to sound like before the timer goes off. Treat life like a science. So if you're looking at a commonplace guide for experts, I expect you to be treating life a little bit like a science or an art, but definitely in some very deliberate way. So next year I'm going to be focusing on making things for people who have already, they're not at the intro level, they're a little bit more at the intermediate level, maybe even the expert level. But, this year is definitely more of the intro stuff. So you might find some people here who are not treating life like a science. If you aren't treating life like a science, just know that next year I'm mostly going to be talking to people who actually put a lot of effort into things. So I hope that doesn't sound rude. I just realized that could sound very bad. Myths of our time. Oh, there's so many different ways to go with this. So one myth is that an expert is a guaranteed employed person. There's some people who go into like really high levels of study where they're the only person on the planet that knows how to do the thing. Sometimes the only person in space that knows how to do the thing, because they went into something that actually like helps out astronauts. But then the funding for that got cut. And so now there's no way to be employed because they have such a very specific niche skill set that if one other expert goes missing, it might be that their expertise doesn't actually end up getting used, which is kind of ridiculous. That's like ultra specialized and then ultra specialized on top of that. So it might be that chain doesn't really work anymore. But it does also feel like a myth to just say like anybody can just like start a YouTube channel and then become a billionaire. Although I did hear earlier today that there is actually a YouTube billionaire now. So that's kind of crazy. Path of least resistance. I just like writing stuff down, and then I look at the thing and I get to make something out of it. Just like I looked at the thing, I made a title. I looked at these things, I made a video. So just remember, if you're an expert, like you didn't always have all these super cool things set up, and there might be another way to do things, which might actually just be to do the easy thing rather than blasting your way through. Just because you have the ability to blast through doesn't necessarily mean you really have to do that. Master the fundamentals. So what are the fundamentals of a commonplace binder? So in a normal commonplace book, there'd be an index in the back, which would say exactly where everything is. Sometimes it might be in the front, other times it'll be in a random place, but basically what I do here is, this is the contents page. I write down the titles of sections, or categories, or whatever you want to call them. And so this is March 2024 data page. If we go to the end of the content section, we can see there's a little tab at the top that says March 2024 data page, and then March 2024 data page. You don't necessarily need to write it absolutely everywhere. If you have multiple pages, it's probably good to write it at the top somewhere. But yeah, like this isn't super complicated. You just want to, get a binder. If it has rings, you're going to need a hole puncher for the paper. Obviously, you're going to need the paper, and the hole puncher is going to need to line up with the rings. If you don't want to put holes in your paper, you're going to need to, get the little plastic things to contain the paper, and those will need to match up with the rings. You probably know all of this. I'm just going to close this here, but it's good to say the basics every so often. So hopefully we have mastered the fundamentals. Cluttered desk. Is your desk going to be super cluttered if you work on this? You tell me, super expert person. Do you really have an uncluttered desk? I feel like this sort of thing appeals to people who have a whole bunch of mental clutter, so the idea that they wouldn't have any physical clutter seems a little silly. It might be that everything's super clean and organized, and people actually use their materials even though that they're like stored in different locations. I don't know. Self-censorship. Oh, what is my problem? Self-censorship. I'm not really trying to censor myself here, although I do censor myself in videos a little bit, just like I censor myself when I'm writing digitally. So you might find that writing physically is, a little bit easier because there's no need to censor anything. But who knows? Labor of love. You're gonna do this thing because you love it, right? That's why we're experts, because we love the thing. Maybe that's the way people are gonna do things in the future. We're just gonna only focus on the things we are absolutely obsessed with. We're gonna go all in, and we're the top of the field. So who's gonna catch us? Nobody. What I'm used to. So by just making this over time, maintaining it for years, just adding to it every single day. Well, at least every single month. Except that's not even totally accurate. Sometimes I go all in for a few weeks, and then I just kind of don't touch it. So I tend to work in cycles of roughly 2 weeks to 2 months. It varies a lot. It depends on the time of year, it depends what I'm eating, depends on the emotional state of the people I live with. But yeah. What I'm used to does change a little bit, and the way that I put out information also changes when I do that. Attention economy. So because I was a little worried about trying to become an expert and the job market not really working out, not because the skills were bad, not because the thing wasn't needed, but just because of political nonsense. And I didn't want to deal with that. And so I was like, okay, we're going to make a thing, and then we're going to present it. I don't know how that's working out right now. As of time of recording, I have made it to the 200 sub marker, or I guess we've made it. This is more of a team effort. I do need to sprinkle in more of the team-related things to hold people's attention, but also to not, do this thing entirely solo. So one of the things that you can do to help me out is to check the community page, and there are a lot of things to vote on. Basically, I'm trying to figure out which title ideas would be better, because I have the key word, but I don't necessarily have the entire title. So it'd be a lot easier if I could combine the keyword with specific titles that people find to be interesting. Strategic approach. Ooh, we're going to be super strategic about it. So if we're in the attention economy, we probably need to do something to get attention with the information. Now, it might be we don't have any information yet. So what we're trying to do is we're building the toolkit. I've heard that one thing that's good to do is build in public. Basically, I'm not a marathon runner, so, this channel is about my way to run a marathon, and then the person would, go through their first mile, and then they would try to do a 5K. I don't know. I haven't actually run in a long time. Got a new pair of shoes, though. I haven't done that in a while, but we'll see what happens. Proof of effort. So the reason to build the toolkit might not necessarily be because it actually works. It might be the proof that you actually did something. So this was a really annoying thing for me in school, because I would sometimes take notes on things, and then we wouldn't get to do anything with the notes. It'd be like, yeah, you took notes to learn the things. And it's like, I wouldn't be taking notes if I wanted to learn the things. I would just read the text because we have so much homework. Kind of ridiculous. Useful. So is this useful? Hopefully it's at least thought-provoking. So if you want to let me know how it's thought-promoting, that's kind of funny. I hope it promotes some thoughts, but if this is thought-provoking, leave those thoughts down below in the comment section, and I will get to you pretty quickly, unless, of course, they're way over 1,000 subscribers, at which point I might be a little hesitant to get to the comments, but as of right now, I think I usually get to every comment within 48 hours, which is kind of ridiculous, so I'm probably going to bump that up to every week. Digital. How does this interface with the digital system? One of the great things about a binder that a lot of people don't seem to understand for some reason is because it's a binder, we can print the stuff out and just slap it in there. Now, obviously, if it's a book, people can slap it in there if they add a bunch of glue, but we can hole punch it, or we can just slide it in. And that's great, because that means if we make something and it sucks, we can just redo it. Or if there's, just a little error, you can still redo it, which is great. Entries. What are your entries going to look like? Well, in the beginning, the way that I started this was I wanted to consolidate my old school notes because I was told that they were valuable and I wasn't allowed to throw them away. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do with these? Consolidate them, of course. Make them something useful. And so what I did is I turned them into my first commonplace binder. And that was a little crazy because, I was trying to squash, way more than one binder's worth of content into a single binder. So I went through 10% of everything first, cleared that out. And I don't think I actually got it into one singular binder. I think it ended up being several, because there's a lot of stuff that people have as leftovers from school. Seen as frivolous. Wait a second, we're going to be focusing on collecting all of our old school notes? What is this? Is that even fun? If it's not fun, then why are we doing it? You're clearing clutter? Okay, but it's old school notes, so just toss all the old school notes because they're useless. Okay, they are not totally useless. They might be 90% useless, but the last 10% might actually have some value. And the value of those notes is actually quite high, because when are you ever going to be looking through the information that you learned in high school? Probably never. So the thoughts that can grow from those old school notes are actually super unique because it's not really what people are focusing on. And if you're, already out of high school and you got rid of your school notes, that's fine. There are a lot of easy ways to just generate a whole bunch of random nonsense. You could go through your last 100 videos by just looking through your liked video playlist or, your watched video playlist, and then just write down a single sentence based on everything that you've seen. And so you don't have to rewatch the videos, you just have to look through all your old stuff and be like, oh, I should write down some recipes. You might do some things that are seen as frivolous. That's okay, because people have lives to do whatever they want with. So, if you live to 25, this might not be the best use of time. If you live to 50, maybe you're leaving this behind for someone. And if you live to 100, it's why are you worried about the time? That's way more time than most people live. So just do whatever you want. In the next video, we are going to be talking about how to tag a commonplace. Obviously, that is a reduced title, or at least the number of words is reduced. This is the Commonplace Guide for Experts. When I explained it in the previous video, I think it was only 3 words. So that's the next one. That was this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for making it through this. Bye.